right now, without you doing anything at all, human science is adding 53 days to your life expectancy every single year.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to think about.
It really is. I mean, you are literally outrunning your own genetic expiration date as we speak. So, welcome to this deep dive. Today we are exploring the biological mechanics of longevity and the reality of life extension.
And we're pulling all of this straight from Dr. Daniel Wallerstorfer's book, Unlock Your Genes for Precision Health.
Right. But before we get into the actual biological hacks to extend life, I feel like we have to establish a baseline. Like, is the human cell even biologically capable of living forever, or is there some hard physical limit?
To answer that, we have to look at one of the most incredible and, frankly, one of the most tragic stories in modern medical history.
Okay.
It's the story of a woman named Henrietta Lacks. Her family and friends called her Henny. She was born in Virginia in 1920, an American of African descent, and she had a really hard life. She was orphaned young, raised in former slave quarters, and, worked on a tobacco farm from early childhood.
Man. And her story becomes, like, pivotal to modern science when she's just 31 years old, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it was 1951. She had given birth to her last child just a few months prior, and she felt a lump.
Oh, no.
Yeah. She went to Johns Hopkins Hospital, which it was the only hospital in the area that treated minorities at the time.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And Dr. Howard W. Jones took a tissue sample and delivered just a devastating diagnosis. It was cervical cancer.
God, 31 is so young.
It is. And despite treatment, the cancer spread aggressively, and she sadly died on August 8th, 1951.
But the biological narrative doesn't stop with her death, right? Because her cells did something that had never been documented before.
Right, exactly. So without her or her family's knowledge, which was the standard completely unethical practice of the time, a cell biologist named George Otto Gay cultivated cells from that tissue sample.
Okay, cultivated how?
Well, normally, when researchers tried to keep human cells alive in a nutrient solution, the cells would divide a few times and inevitably die within days.
They just kind of hit a wall.
Exactly. But Henrietta's cells didn't. They just kept dividing. I mean, every 24 hours, the population of her cells literally doubled.
Wait, so what was the mechanism there? Why did her cells ignore that biological stop sign that literally every other human cell obeyed?
So the cancer had activated a specific gene in her cells called the telomerase gene.
Telomeres, got it.
Yeah, think of it like a biological override switch. To understand why it's so important, you kind of have to picture your chromosomes, right? The things that hold all your DNA.
Okay, picturing them.
At the ends of your chromosomes are these protective caps called telomeres. Every time a normal cell divides, those caps get a tiny bit shorter.
Like wearing down a pencil eraser.
Exactly like that. And when the cap runs out entirely, the cell dies. But the telomerase gene in Henrietta's cells actively rebuilt those caps after every single division.
Wow. So the cells never frayed. They just constantly repaired their own expiration mechanism.
Precisely. They never hit the limit. They became the HeLa cell line, which is named for the first two letters of her first and last name.
Oh, HeLa, right.
Yeah, they're the world's very first immortal human cell. I mean, those cells have been used in over 60,000 scientific publications for cancer and AIDS research.
60,000? That's insane.
It is. During my own PhD studies, I actually cultivated HeLa cells myself.
No way.
Yeah. It is estimated that more HeLa cells have been grown in laboratories than ever existed in Henrietta's actual body.
That is just, it's mind-blowing. Yeah. But it also sets up this massive paradox. If Henrietta's cells definitively prove that human biology physically possesses the cellular machinery for immortality, like the switch is literally inside us, why do our bodies feature planned obsolescence?
That's a great question.
I mean, for anyone listening to us right now, why is their body naturally aging if the hardware for eternal life is sitting right there?
Right. Well, to understand why the switch is turned off, we have to look at the evolutionary genetics of aging, or what the book calls the selective logic of aging.
Okay, selective logic, what does that mean?
Basically, evolution doesn't care at all about our personal desire to live to 100. It operates entirely on survival pressure and passing on genetic material.
Right, so evolution is incredibly pragmatic. It only filters out things that stop a species from reproducing.
Exactly. The book offers this brilliant thought experiment to illustrate it. Imagine an indigenous tribe living in the Amazon rainforest.
Okay.
Suddenly, by pure genetic chance, two new, completely random defects emerge in two different people. Let's call the first one gene E for early and the second one gene L for late.
Got it. Early and late.
Both defects trigger a fatal disease that kills the host just a few weeks after symptoms appear. But here is the mechanism of natural selection at work. Gene E develops symptoms and kills its host before the age of 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but gene L stays completely dormant, hiding in the DNA, and only kills its carrier at the age of 60.
Oh, I see. Which means the timeline dictates the entire future of those genes in the human population.
Exactly.
Because gene E kills the child at 8, that child dies before they can ever reproduce. So that specific genetic defect is instantly eradicated from the gene pool.
Precisely. The survival pressure filtered it out completely. But gene L is what geneticists call a silent hitchhiker.
The silent hitchhiker.
Yeah. The carrier grows up, falls in love, has children. They pass their genes on to the next generation, completely unaware that this fatal defect is just hiding in their biology.
Because it hasn't triggered yet.
Exactly. By the time they turn 60 and die from the disease, well, evolution cannot filter it out anymore. Their children already have it.
Wow. So for anyone listening to us right now who is over the age of 30 or has had kids, evolution has essentially clocked out. It just left them unsupervised.
Unsupervised is the perfect way to synthesize it. What you received at conception were genes optimized to keep your parents alive just long enough to reproduce.
And after our 30s, our biological warranty just drops.
It really does. The system goes unmanaged. The physiological processes start breaking down because there is no evolutionary pressure to maintain them anymore.
So what does that actually look like in the body?
Well, our collagen production declines. Those telomeres we talked about start to shorten without being repaired. Free radical damage increases, and our stem cells, which are basically the tissue's fountain of youth, they gradually deplete.
Okay, but hang on. If nature stops managing our biology after age 30, how in the world have humans managed to push our average life expectancy past 80 years old?
Because human science is rapidly outpacing evolutionary biology. I mean, for almost all of human history, right up until about 1870, the average life expectancy was only 35 years.
Now, we all know high infant mortality skewed historical averages to look like people drop dead at 35. I assume scientists factor that in.
They do, yeah. And even when you completely strip infant mortality out of the data, the growth is astronomical. Yeah. If you recalculate life expectancy by only looking at individuals who have already survived to the age of 10, the leap is profound.
Okay, give me the numbers.
So in the 1950s, a 10-year-old could expect to live another 57 years. But by 2018, a 10-year-old could expect to live another 72 years.
Wow. So even if you survived childhood in both eras, modern science is still buying you decades of extra time.
Exactly. When you crunch the numbers, it means that since 1950, life expectancy has grown by an average of 53 days every single year.
That's the 53 days you mentioned at the start.
Yep. Every single year you survive, medical and technological progress effectively adds almost 2 months to your projected lifespan.
Which brings us to the math of longevity, escape velocity.
Right.
If we are currently adding 53 days a year, but scientific knowledge is growing exponentially, next year it could be 60 days, then 80 days. The concept of escape velocity is what happens when science advances fast enough to add more than 365 days of life expectancy for every chronological year you live.
Precisely. The diseases that would have killed you at 90 are cured by the time you reach 89. It's the same principle as a rocket escaping Earth's gravity.
Once you hit that velocity, you break free from the pull of natural biological death.
Exactly.
But, I mean, living longer is only appealing if we aren't spending those extra decades frail and sick.
Obviously.
Living to 100 isn't a great pitch if you spend 20 of those years confined to a bed.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the actual practical biological hacks researchers are observing right now to slow down that decay?
Let's start with a biological hack that requires no futuristic technology at all. In Okinawa, Japan, they have a completely unique culture of longevity.
Okay.
Out of every 100,000 people in Okinawa, 56 of them live to be at least 100 years old.
Wow.
To give you context, in the United Kingdom, it's only 21 out of 100,000.
So they are more than doubling the statistical odds. What are they doing differently over there?
It's a cultural practice called hara hachi, which basically translates to eat until you are 80% full.
Really? Just eating less?
Yeah. The average Okinawan adult consumes only about 1,800 to 1,900 kilocalories a day.
Okay, reducing calories by 20% clearly works for them. But the book mentions studies where mice had their diets restricted by 60% and they lived a massive 50% longer.
They did, yeah.
But let's be real, a 60% calorie deficit for a human sounds absolutely miserable. Is the trade-off worth it? Like, how does starving yourself actually stop the biological clock?
It's a very fair question, and it comes down to understanding the cellular mechanism.
Okay, walk me through it.
When you drastically reduce caloric intake, your body realizes it has less energy available. So it switches your cellular metabolism from a growth mode into a highly efficient energy-saving mode.
Interesting.
When your metabolism runs slower and more efficiently, it creates fewer harmful waste products, specifically free radicals, which are kind of the exhaust fumes of our cells that damage tissue over time.
Oh, I see. So fewer calories means less exhaust coming out of the cellular engine, which means less wear and tear.
Exactly. But the mechanism goes even deeper. This state of caloric lack actively turns on a specific class of genes called sirtuins.
Sirtuins?
Yes, and these aren't just passive genes, they are active repair crews. Sirtuins reduce inflammation, optimize metabolism, and physically restore damaged DNA.
Okay, but instead of starving, can we just trick the system? Like, can we activate those sirtuin repair crews without living on a massive calorie deficit?
That is exactly where molecular science is focusing right now, specifically on a coenzyme called NAD+, Sam.
NAD+.
Yeah. Think of NAD+ not just as a helper, but as the physical freight trains of your cells. They carry electrons between molecules to create cellular energy.
Right.
If those freight trains stop running, the factory shuts down, and those sirtuin repair crews can't do their jobs.
And because of that evolutionary warranty we talked about, I'm guessing our bodies stop manufacturing those freight trains as we age.
Precisely. By the time we hit 80, our bodies produce only 1/8 of the NAD+ we had in our youth.
1/8. Wow.
Yeah, so the repair crews have no energy to operate, and DNA damage just accumulates. But we can replenish the raw materials. Scientists use a substance called NMN, which is naturally found in things like broccoli and avocados.
Okay, so eat your broccoli.
Exactly. Because when you consume NMN, your intestines rapidly convert it into NAD+ bed.
So we are literally restocking the freight trains. What happens when we do that?
Well, in laboratory studies, researchers took 2-year-old mice, which is roughly the biological equivalent of a 50-year-old human, and fed them NMN for just 2 weeks.
2 weeks, that's nothing.
Right. And in most mental disciplines, those older mice performed just as well as young mice. Their energy returned, free radicals dropped, and the sirtuin genes kicked into high gear.
That is incredible.
It is. The book notes that taking 200 to 1,000 milligrams of NMN a day can help increase those NAD+ levels.
Okay, so that addresses the cellular energy part.
Yeah.
But what about the physical DNA caps?
Mhm.
You mentioned Henrietta Lacks and how the telomerase gene rebuilt the ends of her chromosomes. Are scientists trying to use that exact mechanism intentionally?
They are, yeah. At Stanford University, researchers took normal human cells and artificially activated the telomerase gene for just 48 hours.
Just 2 days.
Yep. By turning that switch on for just 2 days, the telomeres lengthened so much that the cells gained about 40 additional cell divisions.
Wow.
And extrapolated out, that equals a 70% longer life for those cells.
Okay, but doing that in a petri dish is one thing. Can it be applied to a complex living organism without causing cancer, which is essentially what killed Henrietta Lacks?
Right, that has always been the primary fear with telomere extension. But in a 2012 study, researchers used a modified virus to safely deliver and activate the telomerase gene in mice.
And what happened?
The 1-year-old mice lived 24% longer. The 2-year-old mice lived 13% longer. And crucially, they did not show an increased risk of cancer.
That's huge. But, viral gene therapies and specialized lab supplements sound incredibly expensive and years away for the average person. Is there anything currently sitting in our pharmacies that does this right now?
Actually, there is, and it caused a massive paradigm shift in the scientific community. It's a drug called metformin.
Metformin.
Yeah, it was introduced in 1958 to treat type 2 diabetes. And to prove its long-term safety, researchers analyzed data across more than 50 different trials, comparing healthy people, diabetics not on metformin, and diabetics who were taking metformin.
Okay, I assume the diabetics on the drug did better than the diabetics off the drug, but how do they compare to the healthy people?
This is where the data shocked everyone. The diabetics taking metformin lived longer and healthier lives than the completely healthy control group.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Their probability of dying from other age-related diseases was 7% lower than that of the healthy individuals who didn't have diabetes at all.
Wait, a cheap diabetes drug from the 1950s made sick people outlive healthy people. What is the biological mechanism making that happen?
Metformin triggers an enzyme called AMPK. Think of AMPK as your body's central energy sensor.
Okay.
When metformin activates this enzyme, it essentially tricks your cells into thinking your body is fasting.
Oh.
Like the Okinawa diet.
Exactly. It mimics the exact cellular stress of the Okinawan caloric restriction we talked about earlier without you actually having to starve.
That is wild.
The cells go into repair mode, cleaning out junk and lowering inflammation. In mouse studies, metformin extended lifespan by 10%. Another drug called rapamycin, usually used for transplant patients, extended mouse lifespans by up to 38%.
So we are literally tricking the body into repairing itself by repurposing existing medicine.
Yeah, exactly.
But all of this diet, NMN, metformin, is preventative. What happens when the damage is already done? What happens when a tissue is completely destroyed and no pill is going to fix it?
That brings us to stem cell therapy, which the book refers to as the body's spare parts factory.
Spare parts factory. I like that.
Yeah. A stem cell is essentially a blank slate. It hasn't decided what type of tissue it's going to be yet. A profound example of utilizing these blank slates is the treatment being developed for butterfly children.
Butterfly children. Yeah. These are children born with epidermolysis bullosa. It's a genetic defect where their skin is missing a specific gene that mechanically anchors the skin layers together.
Oh, wow.
Because of this, their skin is incredibly fragile. The slightest friction causes devastating wounds.
That's heartbreaking. So how do blank slate stem cells fix a genetic anchoring problem?
Doctors isolate stem cells from the child's own body. In a lab, they literally edit the source code. They physically integrate the missing anchoring gene into those stem cells.
Okay.
Then they return these newly repaired stem cells to the child's skin. Because they are blank slates programmed to become skin, they multiply and rebuild strong, healthy tissue with the corrected code.
We are rewriting the biological hardware and reinstalling it.
Basically, yeah.
But stem cells can only do so much, right? What if an entire organ completely fails and biology reaches its absolute limit?
When biological repair fails, we turn to mechanical engineering and bionic futures. Take the kidneys, for example. The UCSF Foundation has developed an implantable artificial kidney. It's a nanosieve the size of a coffee cup that is implanted directly into the body.
But how do you power a mechanical kidney inside the human body without external batteries?
The engineering is brilliant. It requires no batteries at all, or none. The sieve is driven entirely by your own blood pressure. The physical force of your heart pumping pushes the blood through the nanosieve, filtering out contaminants exactly like a biological kidney.
A mechanical organ powered entirely by the human pulse. That is astounding. But what if the heart itself is the organ that fails?
Then we look at the story of Stan Larkin.
Who's Stan Larkin?
In 2014, Stan was diagnosed with familial amyloid cardiomyopathy, which is a rare genetic disease. His biological heart was failing so badly it had to be completely removed.
Wow.
Doctors replaced it with a Syncardio 70cc mechanical heart. It's purely mechanical, 2 inflatable structures that pump blood.
But a mechanical pump needs a power source.
Yeah.
How does it inflate if his heart is gone?
The pump inside his chest required a constant stream of compressed air, and because the machinery to generate that air was too large to implant, Stan Larkin carried the pneumatic machine in a backpack.
In a backpack?
Yeah. 2 plastic valves came out of his chest and connected to the backpack. He lived like that, without a biological heart in his body, for 17 months until a donor transplant was found.
He lived for 17 months walking around with his heartbeat in a backpack. That completely redefines what is physically possible.
And he isn't alone. Today, he has his transplant and plays basketball, but more than 1,400 people around the world are currently living with this type of artificial heart.
You know, when we step back and look at this nanosieves powered by blood pressure, mechanical hearts and backpacks, viral gene therapies, it's easy to feel like we're forcefully cheating death.
Yeah, I get that. But the people utilizing these advancements don't experience it that way. When someone goes on dialysis, gets a pacemaker, or uses a modified virus to fix a fatal lung condition, they are just receiving acute medical treatments for specific illnesses.
Yeah.
The side effect of curing those acute illnesses just happens to be the continuous radical expansion of the human lifespan.
And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this deep dive. The genes we were born with, the biological hardware we inherited from our parents, are operating entirely post-warranty.
Exactly. Nature has clocked out.
It is entirely up to us to manage this system, to eat in ways that trigger cellular repair, to replenish our biological raw materials, and to utilize the incredible science available to us.
Couldn't have said it better.
But I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. Ray Kurzweil, the futurist and scientist, predicts that it's likely just another 10 to 12 years before the general public hits that longevity escape velocity.
10 to 12 years. It's so close.
He believes the next decade will be a profound revolution where biotechnology completely overtakes traditional medicine. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. If science essentially cures aging in our lifetime, and you suddenly have an extra 50 or 100 healthy years ahead of you, well, are you prepared to fundamentally rethink what a full life actually looks like?